Okay, today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Yudalid. Today's daf is sponsored by Rabbi Alana Axel in honor of Rabbi Roger Ross, Rabbi Jill Hausman, Rabbi Mary Jane Newman, and in memory of Rabbi William Curry Zichrono Livracha, with gratitude. Okay, we're going to start right now at the very bottom, 5 lines from the bottom of Kufyu Gimel. It's a very interesting daf yesterday, so we're going to all learn it together. About one of the main issues we discussed was clothing on Shabbat. So, and how one needs to wear different type of clothing on Shabbat than other days of the week. So we're going to start with the issue of clothing. If you remember, in the context we saw in the very beginning, that kibadeto me'asot drachecha, this is at the bottom of Amud Aleph, that the words to respect Shabbat were meant to mean, according to Rabbi Yochanan, or according to others, to wear nicer clothing on Shabbat. I hope everybody did that yesterday. And then it said, because he called his clothes machbedotai. If you remember, my clothes are my way of showing respect. And here we're going to learn all sorts of interesting things today about clothing, not just specifically related to clothes on Shabbat. So the first thing they're going to do is show an opinion of Rabbi Yochanan and a different thing about clothing where or about kavod, where it says kavod, where he matches his opinion there, where it lines up very nicely, where there he says it's referring to clothing. We're going to start with a verse from Yeshayahu, which is talking about the destruction of Sancherib, the king of Ashur. And it says, Tachat kvodo yikod ki yikod esh. Now, I don't want to even explain the word tachat, because tachat could mean in place of, it could mean under. So this is going to lead to a few different commentaries here about how to understand the meaning of this pasuk. So again, it could be in place of kavod. There will be yikod ki yikod esh. It will be burned like a fire. Or it could mean under the kavod, it will burn, meaning the kavod itself won't burn, but underneath it will. And that's going to be the first interpretation. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, b'tachak kvodo v'lo kvodo mamash. What's going to burn? Under his kavod, but not actually the kavod is going to burn. So what does this mean? There's somehow an assumption that there's some sort of magical type of fire that's going to burn through Sancherib or his people. So it's going to explain, I think it's specifically Sancherib here, or maybe it's actually his soldiers, Rashi says. So now he's going to say what's under the kavod. Rabbi Yochanan l'tameh, de Rabbi Yochanan kari lemane machbedotai. He calls the clothing machbedotai. So he says under their clothes are going to burn, but their clothes aren't going to burn. Meaning their clothes will remain intact, but their bodies underneath are going to burn. That was the miracle, right? Imagine, how could someone burn but not his clothes? That's the miracle that's going to happen here. Rabbi Elazar Omer, v'tachat kvodo, tachat kvodo mamash. He means, kavod doesn't mean clothing, and tachat doesn't mean underneath. Tachat means in place of. In place of the kavod, which means in place of the bodies, will be a fire, meaning the bodies are going to burn. So he means the same thing, but he understands it differently from the verse. The third explanation is going to be different. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar Tachat kvodo kisrifat b'nei Aharon. The way the sons of Aaron died, when the fire swallowed them, burned them in the Beit HaMikdash, or in the Mishkan, Malahalan srifat neshama v'guf kayam. Okay, there's an understanding that says their nishamot, their souls burned, but their bodies didn't. Av kan srifat neshama v'guf kayam. That's what it means. Tachat kvoda means, again, underneath their kavod, but here their kavod is their bodies, according to him, and underneath their kavod. So he agrees with Rabbi Elazar that the kavod is their bodies, but disagrees with him about what tachat means. Tachat means underneath. He understands the underneath the way Rabbi Yochanan did, but it's not underneath the clothing, it's underneath the bodies it's going to burn, and their bodies are going to actually remain intact. So just their soul will burn, not their bodies. Amar Rabbi Acha bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan, minayin l'shinuyei b'gadim min haTorah. Here's the interesting thing. How do you know that you have to change your clothes for different events? And I can think about when we were kids growing up, everyone said you go to Grossinger's, you change your clothes a million times a day. This is dating me again, but back to the Grossinger's days, people would change their clothes all the time. How do you know that? Here we see there's a source in the Torah for there's a certain time to wear certain clothing. Shouldn't always wear the same clothes, and right, you would think this shouldn't be so significant to the rabbis, but really wearing clothes and what kind of clothes you wear is very important for what occasion. How do we learn this? Shenema, we're going to learn from the Kohanim. One of the avodot that the Kohanim, the jobs that the Kohanim have, is to take out the deshen. It means all the ashes in the mizbeach. Imagine they burnt a lot of sacrifices. There were these ashes, and they had to bring it. Okay, the pasuk says when they go to bring it out to the truma, to take out the deshen, it says upashat et begadav v'lavash begadim achirim. The Kohen's supposed to take off his clothes and wear different clothes. V'otzia tadeshen el michutz lamachaneh el makom tahor. And then you take it out of the Beit HaMikdash or out of the Mishkan area to this makom tahor. You do michutz lamachaneh. So it's taken out outside the machaneh, and he would change his clothes before he did it. First of all, if you think about clothing in the Torah, one of the most prominent places where clothing appears is by the Kohen in general. There's the regular Kohen has certain clothes he wears, the Kohen Gadol has certain clothes. The Torah spends a very long time describing what all these clothes look like, so you could see why they would specifically learn about clothing from the Kohanim. So here, he changes his clothes. Who else changes, right? The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim changes clothes all the time, right? He has the begadim that are gold and the ones that are white. V'tana debei Rabbi Yishmael. So now there's a braita on this pasuk. Limdicha Torah derech eretz. Taught you a way of life. Begadim shabishel b'hem ktera lerabo, al yimzog b'hem kos lerabo. Your cooking clothes should not be the clothes that you serve, right? You're cooking your clothes for your rabbi. That's certain clothes, right? Some of us wear aprons in the kitchen to make sure our clothes don't get dirty. You shouldn't use those same clothes because they generally get dirty for serving. So when you go to Limzoget HaKos for your rabbi, you should change your clothing. So here there's different, and this clearly doesn't relate to Shabbat. Here we're talking about different occasions for different things. You need to be careful what you're wearing. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, from here we're going to segue into clothing for Talmidei Chachamim. You might think, before we even start, the rabbis, the ones who sat and learned, weren't always the wealthiest of people. Some of them were, some of them weren't. Often they did work and learn. It wasn't like they were only learning, but still, even the ones who worked, like if you remember the famous story on Brachot Kafav about Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, and how Rabban Gamliel goes to Rabbi Yeshua's house. Rabban Gamliel was wealthy. We just talked about that the other day. And Rabbi Yeshua was living in the house with blackened walls. He said, why are the walls in your house black? He says, don't you know, I work with coals, and I'm not obviously wealthy like you are. And here we see a lot of them really, even though they worked, they didn't have a lot of money. But yet it says here, it's very disrespectful for a Talmid Chacham to walk into the shuk wearing tattered shoes. So first of all, interesting, it's not a problem in the Beit Midrash, it sounds like, specifically when he walks into the shuk. Okay, and we'll see why in a minute. First they ask, Rabbi Acha bar Chanina nafik, but we know he went out with tattered shoes, and apparently it made a scene because everybody knew. Rabbi Acha berid Rav Nachman b'tlai al gabei agav tlai. Okay, first of all, he did it, but he was okay. What's forbidden is when you have a double patch. Okay, if you patch your shoes up twice, then you're really in bad shape. That looks really embarrassing. If you have one patch on your shoes, okay, sometimes shoes rip a little, you have to fix them up, we understand. This, by the way, relates to what we were just talking about, the shoes, if they tear and they tear on the outside and then it's embarrassing, people don't want to walk. Clearly shoes, right, you would think, nowadays also, people are very careful about what shoes they wear, and you could see, right, people take shoes very seriously, even though they're on the ground and people don't see them as much, they really took them seriously. Now they're going to say, "Va'amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kol tamid chacham shenimtza revav al bigdo chayav mita." Okay, not only should you not walk around in tattered shoes, and in this source we're going to see why, but also if you have a stain on your clothing, now here it says very extreme, you're liable to get the death penalty. That's quite serious for walking around with a stain on your shirt. Okay, so now why is this so serious? Again, probably they didn't really mean that you're going to get the death penalty. I'm sure nobody put to death anybody who walked around with a stain on their clothes, even if they were Talmid Chacham. But what we see here is how seriously they took it, and they wanted people to know this is something serious, take it seriously. Shne'emar, kol misanai ahavu mavet. Okay, how did they darshan this pasuk? The pasuk in Mishlei. It means call all of my people who hate me love death. Al tikrei misanai, those who hate me, ela masni'ai, those who cause others to hate me. What this means is, it's as if God is speaking. Anyone who causes people to hate God are ahavei mavet, that means they're deserving of death. Okay? What are we trying to say here? That by a Talmid Chacham walking around in tattered clothing, in tattered shoes, or in stains on his clothing, would cause people to look despicably at Talmidei Chachamim. They'll say, oh, look at those Talmidei Chachamim. This is Torah, right? And basically what they're saying is, you're a Talmid Chacham, you represent Torah. The way you walk around affects the way people view God, and therefore you have to take it very seriously. From here, one might understand why there's some people who walk around in white shirts and black pants as a way of looking respectful at all times. So in order not to cause people to hate you, you should dress appropriately as a Talmid Chacham, and not to have people hate God, okay? Because you basically are representative of God. Ravina Amar, Rivad Itmar. It's not a stain. Okay, so I didn't explain what a Rivav is. A Rivav is a stain, Rashi says. It's a stain of oil, some sort of oil, either shuman or chelef, the forbidden or the permitted fats. So Ravina says it's not fat. It's not that kind of thing. It's Rivad Itmar. It's not Rivav, it's Rivad. You got confused. Velo pligi. Okay, so now what's Rivad? Again, it's not clear. There's a bunch of things, again, as usual in the Gemara, that are not exactly clear in today's daf what the interpretation is. Some people say, Rashi says it's shechvat zera, it's semen, which you can understand why that would be embarrassing for someone to walk around with semen on their clothes. Other people say it's blood, which maybe connects a little bit with the same idea, that it's blood maybe from Nida, from his wife. His wife's blood is on his clothing, and then so Nida blood, that would be all the worse. And this is making it sound like it's much worse than just a stain on clothing, and maybe they're trying to explain why he'd be chayav mavet for this, because it's showing, behavior that he shouldn't be showcasing in public, and especially if his wife's Nida blood, that's the worst. That looks like he's sleeping with his wife when she's in Nida. But anyway, maybe it's just a regular blood stain and it's just a very noticeable stain. Again, a little bit unclear, but and then they say, velo pligi, habi glima, habi lavusha. It depends if it's the upper or the lower cloak. We're going to see the same distinction later. Again, they wore clothes underneath and they wore a cloak above. If it's the cloak above, then we don't want even any stain like an oil stain. But if it's underneath, then we're worried about the blood and the semen or whatever it might be, which is more of an underneath type of stain. And we're talking about different types of cloaks, and therefore it's not really a debate between them. But Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. We're having a number of statements in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, stated by Rabbi Chia. Mai dechtiv ka'asher halach avdi Yeshayahu aron v'yachef. Okay, here's a Yeshayahu who goes aron v'yachef shalosh shanim, ot v'mofet al Mitzrayim v'al Kush. He's trying to make a sign about what's going to happen to Mitzrayim and Kush, and he walks around naked and barefoot. So what does this mean, right? They can't imagine. He's walking around really naked and without shoes on. Arom b'bgadim beluim. Say, naked means you're wearing worn out clothing, because wearing worn out clothing, they're basically saying, is synonymous with walking around naked. V'yachef b'minalim ha'metulaim. And what does it mean? Barefoot, it means he had shoes, but they were tattered. Tanan hatam. Now we're going to quote a Mishnah. Okay, this is a Mishnah in Mikvaot, about toveling items in the mikvah. And we always have an issue when you go to the mikvah, what's considered what we call a chatzitza, right? We know this from women going to the mikvah, they have to take off anything on their bodies and anything that's a separation between them and the water. And therefore, right, what's a separation? A separation is defined as something that one normally would not take off, right? Something that one would normally take off or would be makpid, we say. They wouldn't want it there. That's considered a chatzitza. If it's something they don't care about, then it's not a chatzitza. So now we're going to talk about mikvah, not when it comes to people, but mikvah of clothing or items. So we're going to start with the saddle. If a saddle becomes impure and you want to tovel it in the mikvah, so what if there's rivav ala mardea? If there's a stain of this oil stain on the saddle, chotzetz, that is a separation. You can't put it in the mikvah. If you do, it's ineffective. Rashba gomer ad ki isara italki. Depends on the size. It has to be the size of a coin. We've seen this coin before. It's often used for sizes. It's the size of an isar, an Italian isar. Va'ala b'gadim mitzad echad ino chotzetz mishnei tzadim chotzetz. If you're talking about on clothing, it depends. Has the stain saturated the clothing so that it appears already on the other side? If so, then it's a problem. If not, it's not a problem. If it's only on one side, it's not a problem. So mitzad echad, it's not a chatzitza, but mishnei tzadim, it is chotzetz. It creates a separation, and you can't put it in the mikvah. Rabbi Yehuda omer mishum Rabbi Yishmael af mitzad echad chotzetz. He thinks, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, that it would create a chatzitza even on one side. A stain like that is significant. Ba'amine Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish mi Rabbi Chanina. So now he asked the following question. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish asked Rabbi Chanina, mirdat mitzad echad o mishnei tzadim. It just said rivav ala mirdat. It didn't say did it saturate to the other side of the saddle or not. So what's the answer? Amar le zolo shamati. I didn't hear that. But kayotze ba shamati. But I did hear something similar that I think I can learn from there to this case. Ditnan. It says in the following Mishnah, also in Mikvaot, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shel banaim, it's in that same, I think it's in the same Mishnah. Shel banaim mitzad echad v'shel bor mishnei tzadim. For banaim, for builders, a stain on one side is a problem. But of a bor, if it's a non-knowledgeable person, then if it's only if it's saturated on two sides. Now this sounds a little strange. Why are we comparing builders to a bor? A bor is like what we call an ama'aret, someone's not knowledgeable about halacha. A banai is someone who builds. That doesn't seem like that would be two sides of one coin. So we'll understand in a minute what bana'im means, but right now we're going to say the bana'im one side. And by the way, you would think a builder gets dirty when the builder works, so it seems strange they're using a builder terminology. We'll see in a minute. And therefore, once he says this, first we're going to get to his proof. He says, well, if a bor, it has to have saturated mishnei tzadim, v'lo tehem merdat chashuva mibigdo shel ama'aretz. A saddle should be no more important than the clothes of an ama'aretz, and therefore it must be that it needs to be saturated on two sides in order for it to be considered a separation and a problem for it to go into the mikveh. Now the Gemara says, my banaim, and we're going to get one answer. From there, I'll just tell you the structure. We're going to get off on a tangent with that answer, and then we're going to come back and give a second answer to what banaim are. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Elu Talmidei Chachamim she'oskim bebinyano shel olam kol yebehem. Right, the Talmidei Chachamim are the builders. Comes up at the end of Shas, right? Al tikre banayich ela bonayich. They're the ones who build. They build this world, and therefore they're the ones who are building the world. When the mimim banaim, we're talking about Talmidei Chachamim, which now all of a sudden makes a lot of sense. We're comparing the Talmidei Chachamim, those learning, to the bor, the people who aren't learning. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and now Rabbi Yochanan is going to make all sorts of comments about Talmidei Chachamim in general and also about their clothing. Ezehu Talmid Chacham, so it connects with what we saw in the beginning of the daf about how important it is for Talmid Chacham to wear proper clothing. So here also, a stain on one side for Talmid Chacham is going to be much more significant than for a regular person, right? There's a higher standard for the Talmid Chacham. This, by the way, again, I started with saying about how they were not always wealthy, and it's interesting that they're so careful about their clothes because wealthy people, it's easy for them to have clothes, but people who are not wealthy, it's very hard for them to always make sure their clothes aren't stained. They don't often have change of clothing. And there's this, it's the exact same contrast. And that's why I think they're also talking about the Kohanim here. They bring up the Big Day Kohen as a comparison, almost like the Bein HaMikdash is a Mikdash Ma'at, right? It's like a small Mikdash. And in the Mikdash, we have this issue that we've discussed many times about, on the one hand, you want everything to look glorious and there's all this gold. On the other hand, HaTorah Chasa al Mamonan Shel Yisrael, where the Torah is understanding that people maybe can't afford everything. And there's always this kind of seesaw between how much do we weigh on either side. Are we more careful about not making people to have difficulties financially? On the other hand, you want to create a situation in the Beit HaMikdash and also in the Beit HaMidrash where you have this level of respect and people are walking around in a respectful manner and clean clothes, etc., and not torn shoes. So now Rabbi Yochanan is going to have a whole slew. So again, we've had a lot of statements from Rabbi Yochanan today, and we're continuing. Obviously, this was an issue that was important to him. So now he says, this is a halacha we're learning Bava Metzia when we learn Elu Metziot. When you search for lost item, when you find a lost item and you're supposed to return it to someone, generally we know the person needs to give you simanim. They need to say, it's like this, it's like that, so that we don't have them. If they say, oh, let me see the ring. Oh, that's my ring. That we're not going to be so convinced. But if you're a Talmid Chacham, then we believe you even by you looking at it and saying, oh, I know that's mine. Because we trust the Talmidei Chachamim. Now, how do we know that someone's a Talmid Chacham? You would think, oh, it depends how much Torah he learns. But no, Rabbi Yochanan says, it's someone who makes sure, now here there's a few different interpretations. Rashi says it means that if your clothing is inside out, you make sure to turn it the right way. Okay, that you're careful about that. Now, nowadays, you would think everyone would be careful. If they notice that they put their clothes on inside out, they would clearly change it. Seems in those days, at least in Rashi's time, when Rashi gave this explanation, maybe not everybody was doing that. And therefore, he said that, someone who cares about their clothes to the extent that they would turn them inside out. Other people say, no, if it connects with the sugya before. If they have a stain on one side, they'll turn it the other way so that people can't see the stain. So that, they'll flip their clothing, they'll specifically wear it inside out in order that their stain doesn't show. So it's a bit of a different interpretation, and then it connects more with our sugya according to that. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, another statement about Talmidei Chachamim. Ezu Talmid Chacham shemimanim oto parnas al hatzibur. What's a Talmid Chacham who gets appointed to be in a public position, right? Not everybody who sits and learns is worthy of being in the public position. It's someone who you can ask him halacha about any topic, and he'll know. And even Masechet Kala. Now, why Masechet Kala specifically? First of all, what is Masechet Kala? There's a bunch of small Masechtot, like Pirkei Avot is a small Masechet, and there's some other small Masechtot, and one of them is Masechet Kala. And supposedly, some people say it's more difficult. Some people say it's actually easier, but maybe it's less learned. Some people say, and this explanation I really liked, there's something called the Yarchei Kala, which we'll come across a number of times in the Gemara, which was twice a year before the Chagim, they would come and learn. Everybody would come and learn the Beit Midrash. All those people who were working would take off 2 months a year, and they would sit and learn the Beit Midrash, not like we have a 2-month summer break, but they would do 1 month before the Chagim then, and 1 month before the Chagim in the spring, and before Pesach and before Rosh Hashanah. And they would sit and learn for a month together. And if you would answer questions during the Yarchei Kala in front of everybody, think about all the Talmidei Chachamim are sitting there. It's like a good example is when you teach a shiur to a bunch of people, okay, you might make a mistake. You're not so conscious of what you're saying. But if you teach a shiur that lots of people are hearing and there's all these Talmidei Chachamim listening to you, right, you got to really know your stuff. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. So if you're willing to give your answers at the Yarchei Kala when all the big Talmidei Chachamim are there, then that's a sign that you're a Talmid Chacham who's ra'oi to be a Parnas al Tzibur. Because also, what does it show? It shows you have broad shoulders and you're willing to say things and not worry what other people are going to say. That's a good indication that you're worthy of being in the public in a public position. Okay, next. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ezu Talmid Chacham shebnei iro mitzuvin la'asot lo melachto. In what kind of case are people commanded to do your work for you? Remember, we just said Talmidei Chachamim were supposed to work for themselves, but there's certain ones that should, right? Not all yeshiva bachur should basically be supported by the community, but some people are, and who are those people? Okay, someone who leaves all of his, right? He basically absorbs himself 100% in Torah. So for those people, we should do, it says, milachto, his work for him. Now we specify though. Interesting, they say this, only to give them food. We're not commanded to, I don't know what else, but fix their toilets or other things. It sounds like just give them food, sustain them with their food, other things they can handle on their own. Right? There's still this assumption that you're not supposed to do everything for them. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ezu Talmid Chacham, what's a sign of a Talmid Chacham? Here's just general. This sounds like what he said before. So now they're going to say, Lamai nafkamina, why are you saying this? What's the point? So this seems to connect with what he said before. It's the exact same thing, although we'll see, we're going to add a little something more. And that's probably why they quoted this. So now he's saying, if you know halacha b'chol makom, it doesn't just mean you're a Talmid Chacham, it means you're a Talmid Chacham who can go get a public position. If he knows one Masechet very well, often they did that because that's what they were learning. So they knew what they were learning very well. That's a nice sign. So then ba'atre, then you can be in charge of your community. But if you know everything, then bereish mativta, then we put you as a Rosh Yeshiva. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omer. Okay, now we're finished, closed that sugya, that tangent we got off of Rabbi Yochanan about Talmidei Chachamim and their clothes. And this was all because he said the Banaim, right, who have to be careful about stains even on one side, are Talmidei Chachamim. Comes Rish Lakish and he has a different explanation. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, who's Rish Lakish, Amar, Elu kelim ha'ol yarin haba'im midinat hayam. These are the clothing that the balanim, the people who work in the bathhouse wear, which were imported. Right now we import clothes from Europe, or everyone says, oh, the European clothes, that's the nicest, right? Here they also had imported clothing was nicer. They brought these from Medina Hayam. Those were the clothes we're talking about, that if they're stained on one side, they apparently walked around in the bathhouse with very nice clothing. And if it was stained, right, it would be embarrassing to walk around with that. So for them, again, it's all a matter of relative, right? This is subjective. For those people, if they walk around with a stain on one side, right, they would never do that. So if they do, it's a chatzitza because they're careful about not walking around like that. So now there's an assumption, and I know that, right, when my kids would be little and they'd get white clothing, it was always, oh my God, white clothing. Why would a kid ever wear white clothing? It's going to get stained, right? The issue of stains is much more prominent on white clothing. So they're assuming that because we're so careful about stains on one side on these clothing, they must be white. So the Gemara says, you want to say that the clothes that they wore in the bathhouse were white? Can't be from this statement we're going to hear right now. Rabbi Yana said to his sons, Banai, Al tikberuni, when I die, don't bury me, lo b'kelim levanim, v'lo b'kelim shchorim. Not in white clothing, not in black clothing. Why? Levanim, shema lo eskeh. Maybe when I get up to Shemayim, I won't be worthy. Ve'yeh kechatan bein avelim. And I'll be like the chatan, right? If you keep me in white clothing and I end up being put in with all the bad people, I'll end up, they're all wearing black and I'm wearing white. I'll stand out like a sore thumb, right? Like a groom in front of mourners. Shchorim, shema ezkev eheyeh ka'avel ben chatanim. By the way, a lot of people say black is not a color of avelut according to Jewish tradition. Here you see avelim do wear black. It's interesting. So anyway, he says, black, don't put me there because then I'll be like an avel, but ben chatanim. If I'm zoche and I get with all the good people, they're all wearing white and I'll be wearing black. Now you would think, okay, so not black, not white, what, right? Maybe some pale color, I don't know, that he wouldn't stand out. Specifically, they're going to say red, which is very interesting. What should you dress me in when I die? You should put me in the clothing that they wear in the bathhouse. Alma, if they're not black and they're not white, what color must they be? Sum keninu, they must be red. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. Interesting that they'd be wearing red, right? That he wanted to be buried in red clothing. Look, so now they say, so how could you say that the stain would be prominent, right? It wouldn't be so noticeable on red. It would be much more noticeable on white. Lokashia habiglime habalevushe. Okay, there's really no difficulty here. One is the outer cloak and one is the inner. They wore inside white and they wore outside red. Okay, and therefore they were talking about that story about Rabbi Yana. He said to his sons was talking about the outer cloak. And this one about the stains was talking about the inner cloak. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, mikaplim. Okay, now we're back to the Mishnah. If you remember, or we can go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that you can fold clothing even 4 or 5 times. And you can make your beds, but only from Leilei Shabbat Shabbat. Only if you need them for Shabbat. And then we even said, only if you have no other clothing, only if this, only if that. But then Rabbi Yishmael came in and he said, you can do it. You could do it from Yom Kippur to Shabbat. Okay, that's allowed. Okay, now, why is it allowed? Because he views the Kedusha of Shabbat as stronger than the Kedusha of Yom Tov. And not only that, but you can burn the fats from Shabbat on Yom Kippur. What's left from the sacrifices that has to be burned on the altar, which often they didn't finish during the day and they would do at night. If you didn't do it during the day, you're allowed to do it at night, even if it falls out on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva disagreed. And he said, no, the Kedusha is the same. You can't do it in either direction. Okay, Rabbi Yishmael said, on Yom Kippur, you could do it from Shabbat, but you can't do it on Shabbat from Yom Kippur. So now we're going to get much more in depth into this machloket, and we're going to see their source in the Torah. We're going to start with that. Tanu Rabbanan, they quote a Braita with a more in-depth discussion. Olat Shabbat b'Shabbato. Okay, this is a famous pasuk. We say it every Shabbat, right? You bring the Olav Shabbat on its Shabbat. So what do they darshan from this, right? You could have just said Olat Shabbat b'Shabbat or Olat Shabbat. Why did they say specifically b'Shabbato on its Shabbat? Limed al chalei Shabbat shekrevim b'Yom Kippurim. From here they learn that the fats of Shabbat can be sacrificed on Yom Kippur. Yachol afshal Yom Kippurim. It's telling you the Olat Shabbat b'Shabbato, you can do it. You can sacrifice the Olav Shabbat b'Shabbato. It almost sounds like in its time when it's supposed to be done, even if it falls on Yom Kippur. Yachol afshal Yom Kippur b'Shabbat. Maybe even Yom Kippur can be done on Shabbat then. Talmud Lomar b'Shabbato. But because it says b'Shabbato and not b'Shabbat, they say b'Shabbato comes to teach you there's kind of, first there's an expansion, then there's a limitation. So they expand it to say even Yom Kippur, you can burn from Shabbat, but they narrow it then to say, but not the ones from Yom Kippur can't be burned on Shabbat if Yom Kippur comes out on Friday. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva darshans this pasuk differently. Rabbi Akiva omer, Olat Shabbat b'Shabbato, limed al chalbei Shabbat shekrevim b'Yom Tov. What does this come to teach? Not about Shabbat and Yom Kippur. It comes to teach when we're including something. What are we including? That if Yom Tov, a regular day, remember we talk about Kedusha, first we have Shabbat as the highest, then we have Yom Kippur, which is either close to Shabbat or maybe equal to Shabbat, depending on your view. And then we have Yom Tov, which is less Kedusha. So basically we're going to say, according to Rabbi Akiva, this teaches you that if Yom Tov falls out on Motzei Shabbat, you can burn the chalev from Shabbat, but not Yom Kippur. And then when it comes to limit, what's it limiting? Yachol af b'Yom Kippurim. It's limiting even Yom Kippur. Talmud Lomar b'Shabbato, meaning you can't do it on Yom Kippur that falls on Motzei Shabbat. So there's the difference in the machloket. Do we start by darshaning Yom Tov, which is going to include Yom Tov, and then we're going to exclude Yom Kippur? Or does it start by, we don't even need Yom Tov in the pasuk, which we'll see why in a minute, and then you start by including Yom Kippur and excluding Shabbat, Motzei, Yom Kippur. You can't burn from Yom Kippur to Shabbat. So it all depends where your starting point is, and that's what they're going to say. Kishatim Salomar, if you think about it and you start to understand where the basis of what they're saying is, you can explain like this. L'divrei Rabbi Yishmael, nidarim u'nidavot krevim b'Yom Tov. There's a whole debate, are you allowed to bring voluntary offerings on Yom Tov? Now, first of all, why do they want to allow voluntary offerings on Yom Tov? Because often during the year, you'd say, I promise I'm going to bring sacrifice to the Beit HaMikdash, but you don't go to the Beit HaMikdash all the time. And when do you go? You go on Yom Tov. So there was opinion that said, no problem, you can bring your voluntary offerings on Yom Tov. Other people said, no, you can only bring, right? We only allow the holiness of Yom Tov to be desecrated for, now it's a little tricky because Yom Tov, you're allowed to slaughter, you're allowed to eat. But on the other hand, it's not something that's necessary for the Chag. It's something you promised 4 months ago, and now you happen to come and you're doing it specifically on Yom Tov. It seems strange. So there's an opinion that says you're not allowed to do this. So there's a machloket about this. Now, by the way, I don't want to get into all the details, but some make a distinction. Even if you allow it, maybe you only allow shlamim, because shlamim are sacrifices that you eat the meat of. So you can sacrifice it if you're going to eat the meat, because then you could say, oh, well, instead of slaughtering the animal outside the mikdash, I'll do it as a sacrifice and then I'll eat the meat. Whereas a korban ola, many people say, which is if you bring it, what's called an olat nedava, a voluntary ola offering, a burnt offering, which all gets burnt, you don't eat anything. Many people say, well, then those you for sure can't do on Yom Tov, although I think I saw that there was an opinion that you could even do that on Yom Tov. So there's a debate about that. Anyway, l'divrei Rabbi Yishmael, nidarim u'nidavot krevim b'Yom Tov. Now, if nidarim and nidavot are krevim b'Yom Tov, you're allowed to bring voluntary offerings, then obviously, right, ki itzrich krali Yom Kippurim, well, then the pasuk isn't needed to teach you that the chalev from the sacrifices on Shabbat can be burned on Yom Tov, because if you can bring voluntary offerings, all the more so we're going to allow an obligatory offering that you had to bring on Shabbat. Of course, you can burn the fat on Yom Tov that comes out on Motzei Shabbat. But l'divrei Rabbi Akiva, nidarim and nidavot ain't krevim b'Yom Tov, and because he thinks the nidarim and nidavot can't be sacrificed on Yom Tov, then ki itzrich kra l'mishra b'Yom Tov, then they needed the pasuk to allow Yom Tov, okay? Because if Yom Tov, we're not allowed to bring the nidarim and nidavot, then when you first read that pasuk and it's going to include something, what's it going to include to say, we can burn it on Yom Tov? Once the first drasha is you can burn it on Yom Tov, well, the second one's going to limit, and that's going to limit Yom Kippur. So it all depends on where your starting point is. Amar Rabbi Zera. Before he starts speaking, I'll just remind you that there was that story about Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Yehuda, and that Rabbi Yehuda didn't want him to go to Eretz Israel, and he was going anyway, and he was trying to avoid him. In the end, he didn't avoid him, and he went to him before he left, but he was a little bit scared of him because he didn't want him to make aliyah. Anyway, now he tells us, Ki avinam beBavel. He's telling us a story that when I was in Bavel, I learned this, and when I went to Eretz Israel on aliyah, I heard things different, right? How many times do we see this, right? All of those who made aliyah to Israel know that, you think things are one way and then you get to Israel and things are different ways and people think different things. So same thing happened to Rabbi Zera. Ki avinam beBavel hava amre, right? There's often different traditions in different places. Hadetanya Yom Kippurim shechal liyot erev Shabbat lo hayu tokim ubemotzei Shabbat lo hayu mavdilim divrei hakol hi. Okay, I'll start from the last words. I thought that everybody agreed. I learned in Bavel that everyone agrees. Okay, whether you're Rabbi Kiva, whether you're Rabbi Yishmael, whether you think that you're allowed to burn the chalev or not, or you're allowed to make your beds from Yom Kippur to Shabbat or not. So I thought that at least everyone agreed, though, that when Yom Kippur falls on Erev Shabbat, Friday afternoon, if you remember, we learned they would blow the shofar before Shabbat to remind everybody to stop working. So everybody agrees that you don't have to do that on Yom Kippur because you're already coming from Yom Kippur. And right, nobody's working or anything, and nobody needs a reminder exactly when Shabbat's starting. And on Motzei Shabbat, if Yom Kippur came out on Motzei Shabbat, I'm just going to remind you, this is in the days, nowadays this would never happen. There's never Yom Kippur on Friday or on Sunday, but in those days when they went based on exactly when they saw the new moon, now we have a set calendar, they set the calendar so that it would never happen because these are the two holiest days and they didn't want people to have 2 days that are the most stringent one after the other. But in the time of the Gemara, it was clear you could have this theoretically. I don't know if it ever happened, but theoretically you could have it. And therefore, they're telling you, you wouldn't make Havdalah. Obviously, we don't mean Havdalah with a cup of wine because it's Yom Kippur, but we mean Havdalah in davening. So we don't say any sort of Havdalah. If you know on Yom Tov that falls on Motzei Shabbat, both in Kiddush and in davening, we say Ben Kedushat Shabbat Hivdalta, Ben Kedushat Yom Tov, Kedushat Shabbat, Kedushat Yom Tov Hivdalta, right? There's a difference because we're allowed all of a sudden to cook and all sorts of other things. So they say there's a difference in the Kedusha. We say some sort of form of Havdalah. But when it was Yom Kippur, we don't do that. So he thought everyone agreed about that. But when I got to Eretz Yisrael, I found Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, and he said the following. Rabbi Akiva, that's only Rabbi Akiva's approach to Rabbi Yishmael. Kevan de Amar Chalbei Shabbat Krevim b'Yom Kippurim litaka ki hechi de lahave yade de Chalbei Shabbat Krevim b'Yom Kippurim. In order that people would know this halacha, Rabbi Yishmael thought, in other words, according to Rabbi Akiva, it makes sense we don't make Havdalah or blow the shofar because there's obviously no distinction between Shabbat and Yom Kippurim. It's all the same. Nothing's allowed. You can't do any preparation from Yom Kippur to Shabbat, and you can't burn the chaylev if it's Motzei Shabbat. But according to Rabbi Yishmael, who makes that distinction, he wanted people to know the Chalbei Shabbat are Krevim b'Yom Kippurim, and therefore, in order that people would know that, he would have them blow the shofar on Erev Yom Kippur. Now, this is a little bit strange, because Erev Yom Kippur would be the year that you wouldn't need to know this halacha, because the chaylev is only, you burn it when it comes out on Motzei Yom Kippur, right? Not on Erev Shabbat. Motzei Shabbat. When Yom Kippur falls on Motzei Shabbat, that's when you would be able to burn the chaylev. But he says we do it so that people know in general that this is the case. Some people understand this Gemara a little differently to make it connect a little better, but I'm going to keep with the simple reading of the Gemara, even though, as I pointed out, there's difficulty in it. V'amina le'ana, but I said back to them, right, this is classic. Someone comes from the outside and all of a sudden has some insight that, but because he came from Bavel and always thought that everybody agreed, he had a different way of understanding. He said, the halacha of the chaylev, to know that the chaylev of Shabbat is to burn on Yom Tov, do you need to know that? No. Only the Kohanim and the Mikdash need to know that. And guess what? We don't need shofar blows to teach halachot to Kohanim. Why? Because, Amina Luana, I said to them, Kohanim's reason him. Kohanim, we know, they're very careful, they're meticulous. They know the halachot that apply to them. You don't need a shofar blow to tell them that. They know that. The shofar blows are for the average people who might forget things. So, Amalei Mar Kashisha Bered Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. Mi Amrinam Kohanim's reason him. Is it really true that the Kohanim, it's a good question, right? To the Kohanim, do we assume, is there a basic assumption that Kohanim really know the halachas that are associated with, that they're careful and meticulous about what they do, or maybe not? So Rabbi Zera thought they were, in which case you don't need the shofar blows, and that's why even Rabbi Yishmael, who says there's this difference in the halacha, wouldn't need the shofar blow. But what about, is it really true that there really is rizim? He asked Rav Ashi, Mar Kashisha. So Hatznan, doesn't it say, and here he says, look, in the Mikdash, this is a Mishnah in Sukkah. In Sukkah, they talk about all the tkiyot they did in the Mikdash, and it says, there were 3, lahavtila ta'am, Fridays they had extra shofar blows, 6, lahavtila ta'am mimelacha, to tell people not to do malacha like they had everywhere, and 3, lavdil ben kodesh l'chol, and 3, to say, Shabbat is starting, you have to distinguish between kodesh and chol. Now, you would think, you don't need to do this in the Mikdash because the Kohanim is reason. If there's reason, we assume they're not just meticulous about their own halacha, they're meticulous about halachot, right? Not just about Bein HaMikdash associated halachot, but halachot in general. So why do we have this special shofar blows for them? So they say, Kida Amar Abai, just like Abai says elsewhere, that there were sometimes things they did in the Mikdash, Lish'ar Amad B'Yerushalayim. And think about it, when you blow the shofar in the Bein HaMikdash, people in the surrounding areas in Jerusalem can hear. So Abai says in some other case that they did something in the Mikdash, not for the Kohanim specifically, but for everybody in Yerushalayim. Likewise, Hachanami, you can say L'shar Amad B'Yerushalayim. They blew the shofar in the Mikdash so the people in Jerusalem would hear. It wasn't specifically for the Kohanim. We could still say the Kohanim is rizim, in which case we establish Rabbi Zera's halacha from Bavel, that he brought from Bavel, saying that there's no need to blow the shofar on Yom Kippur when it falls on Friday, to remind you that in upcoming years, if it were to fall out on Motzei Shabbat, you can burn the chaylev, because you don't need a shofar blow for that. The Kohanim know the halachot, and it's not a halacha that the average person needs to know. But now we're going to say, maybe there's another reason, and this is going to take us to the sugya, which is going to finish up the parak for us. We'll finish to the end of the parak today, about what's called knivat yerek on Yom Kippurim. Okay, so now they say, v'li taka. Maybe you should blow the shofar. Why? Ki hechi deliyade deshari b'knivat yerek min hamincha u'lamala. Maybe they should blow the shofar on Yom Kippurim to Shabbat, because it's not just about the chaylev that there's this distinction, but there's a unique halacha for Yom Kippur, something that we allow on Yom Kippur that we don't allow on Shabbat. Now, again, what's this point of a shofar blow? The point of a shofar blow is to say we're moving from a lower kedusha to a higher kedusha. This is a day that certain things are permitted, and tomorrow, or starting, in a few minutes, there's going to be things that are not permitted that were permitted today. So what would this be? Knivat yerek. There's a big debate what knivat yerek is. Yerek we know is a vegetable, something that we're doing to a vegetable. So some people say it's pulling off the leaves from the vegetables. Whatever it is, it's some sort of preparation of food before the end of Yom Kippur. We want to allow you to prepare food. This is a good halachic question. Are you allowed to prepare food on Yom Kippur for after Yom Kippur? So according to this, it says that knivat yerek is allowed. What is knivat yerek? So either it's pulling off leaves to get the fruit, the vegetables ready. Tosfot says it's cutting them into big pieces. Okay, not little pieces, because then it's an Isra Malacha of Tochen. We have to find something that's not really an Isra Malacha, but it's also something that you shouldn't do. Rashi says, what's the issue here? You're toreach, you're working for being mechin, something for after the holiday, right? Which you're not allowed to do. Just like what we were talking about, folding laundry and all those other things, making beds for after Shabbat, you're not allowed to do. This is likewise the same idea. You can't prepare your vegetables for something after, but on Yom Kippur, we're going to allow it. Okay, we'll get to why we're going to allow it later. Some people say it's taking off rotten leaves, which some people say, how could that possibly be? That's borer. We certainly wouldn't be allowing it as Isra Malacha. So there's a big debate about what exactly it is. But whatever it is, it's something that's allowed from the afternoon and on Yom Kippur, from Mincha time. Right? Mincha usually means Mincha Ktana, from 2.5 hours before the end of the day. Amar Rabbi Yosef. So now the question is, why don't we blow the shofar to say that on Yom Kippur you could do Knivat Yerek, not on a regular day? Again, we have this issue. If it comes out on Friday, you can't do Knivat Yerek because it was preparing the food for cooking, and you're not going to cook on Motzei Shabbat. So there's a bit of this disconnect a little bit. But it's to tell you maybe that halacha in general, that in other years it will be allowed. Amar Rav Yosef lefi she'ein dochin shvut lahatir. He says the reason we don't blow the shofar to tell you that is because we don't blow the shofar to tell you something's allowed when it's an Isra Malacha, it's a shvut, it's an Asr D'Rabbanan, not an Isra Malacha, but it's forbidden from the rabbis to blow shofar. Okay, and usually they say because you might carry it, so we don't let you blow the shofar. Therefore, since it's really Asr in general, we're only going to allow it if it's to forbid something so that people don't make a mistake, but not to allow something. That's not a good reason. But now they say, what do you mean? Rav Shish B'Reid Rav Idi Amar Shvut Krova Hitiru. Shvut Rechoka Lo Hitiru. He says, by the way, we do allow a shvut. We allow you to be over on an Isra D'Rabbanan for a heter, but only if the heter is close, not if it's far away. Some people say this heter isn't close because it's from Mincha time, although it's still strange because it's not like on this year they're going to allow it. So it seems to be saying Shvut Rechoka is that it's only for next year or for some future year when it comes out on a regular day and not on Erev Shabbat. So we're not going to let you blow the shofar now for something that's so far off. Okay, well, we'd only let you do it if it was a heter that was immediate. So now they say, Shvut Korai Tiru, really? You allow to do something that's Asr Midrabanan for something to make a to tell people that something is allowed, even if it's close? V'hatznan, or only if it's close. But do we really allow that? V'hatznan, doesn't it say in the Mishnah? Yom Tov Shchaliot Erev Shabbat, Tok'im v'lo mavdilim. Motzei Shabbat, mavdilim v'lo tok'im. V'amai, litaka, k'yechi diliyade deshari b'shchita la'alter. What do we say here? If Yom Tov falls on Erev Shabbat, we do blow the shofar, but we don't make Havdalah. And that's so that people know, right, that Kedusha of Shabbat is higher. And that's why we don't say any sort of Havdalah in Kiddush, because you're being Mavdil, right? You're going in higher Kedusha, not less. But Motzei Shabbat, you make Havdalah if it's to Yantif, because it's a lower Kedusha. Below Tokim, and you don't blow shofar on Shabbat to say Yantif is starting, obviously, right? But now they say. But if we allow a Shvut to allow, you might say, maybe people should know that from right now Shabbat ends and now you can shecht your animals. So it must be like Rav Yosef that we don't allow a shvut to matir anything. Shvuts, right? We only allow you to blow shofar to tell you something's forbidden, not tell you something's permitted. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rav Huna, Yom Kippurim shechali yom Shabbat asur b'knivat yerek. Here we start a new topic similar to this, but what if, can you do Knivat Yerek on Shabbat Yom Kippur? Let's say, right, until now we've been talking about it's Friday, it's Motzei Shabbat. What if it falls on Shabbat? This actually happens. Do we allow Knivat Yerek then? Or is it only something that's Yom Kippur when it's not Shabbat? So he says, it's a sul. Amarav Mina, from Manatana. Where do we learn this from? From the following Braita. Minay liyom kippurim shchali yom Shabbat shasur b'knivat Yerek, Talmud lomar Shabbaton. It says Shabbaton, which is extra. It already said you can't do malacha. Now it says it's Shabbaton. It's a day of rest. Shavuot, you should rest. Lemai, for what? Ilem ala malacha, if it means stop doing work. Haktiv, it already says lo taseh kol malacha. Elalava knivat yerek. It must be to teach you can't do knivat yerek. Okay, that's the halal. That's the special. That's what you learn from Shabbaton. Shma mina. So from there you have it. You can't do it if it's Shabbat, Yom Kippur. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Avin, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. But now they say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Yom Kippur Shchali Yom Shabbat Mutar b'knivat yerek. It's allowed. So of course they're going to bring this right as a contradiction. We learn from that Shvot Lemai Ilem Lemalacha. If you're going to say it's for Malacha B'Haktiv, it already says Lo Taseh Kol Malacha Elalav b'Knivat Yerek. So it must be Knivat Yerek. So they say Lo La'olam Lemalacha. It really means Malacha. And what's it trying to tell you? Shabbaton is a mitzvah aseh, right? You have to rest. So it's trying to tell you Lavor Ale Ba'aseh V'Lo Taseh. If you do work, you transgress a negative prohibition and you don't fulfill a positive. Okay, so it's worse than average. Okay, last thing we're going to do. Tanya Kavatei Rabbi Yochanan Yom Kippurim Shchali Yom Shabbat Muktar B'Knivat Yerek and Mifatzim Be'egozim U'Praksim Be'Rimonim and Amincho Lamala. You can do this. Mipnei Ogmat Nefesh. I wanted to get to this because I want you to see why this is all allowed. I didn't want to finish without getting to this. Why is this all allowed? Ogmat Nefesh is a fascinating line because there's many different ways of understanding it. Ogmat Nefesh. One opinion is when you prepare the food, it's actually, what does it say on Yom Kippur? You're supposed to torture your soul. It's torture to start dealing with food when you can't eat. So therefore, it's part of the mitzvah of the day of and that's why it's allowed. A really interesting explanation. Some people say, it's Ogmat Nefesh, you're going to be worried all Yom Kippur, I don't have any food, I'm going to have to start cooking my food, I'm going to have to start by taking care of my vegetables and then cooking, right? And then you're going to be worked up during Yom Kippur, so we don't want that. Some people say it's the Ogmat Nefesh after. When you're done, it's going to be Ogmat Nefesh at that point to start preparing your food. So for one or any of those reasons, they allow it. Last interesting line, we're going to finish with this. Debei Rav Yehuda Mekanve Krava, they would do knivat of kruvim, of cabbage. Debei Rabba Garde Kare, they would scrape clean the gourds. Kevan dechaze to have a kamacharfe, but then he noticed this is only allowed from the afternoon, from mincha time. He noticed they were doing this even earlier. Amar Lahu, fascinating line also. Ata igrata mima'arava mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan de Asir. I got a letter, he says to his family, I got a letter from Eretz Israel that says that Rabbi Yochanan says this is forbidden. And with that, Hajan alach ve'eluk sharim, we finish the parak. Now, why is that a fascinating line? It's a great way to end the parak. Rabbi Yochanan was the one, if you were paying attention, he said it's a sur, right? It's a sur on Shabbat, right? Shabbat shasur b'knivat yerek. He was more machmir about this knivat yerek, and he certainly didn't forbid it. And on Yom Kippur, my mistake. He said, he says it's mutar even on Shabbat. So if it's mutar even on Shabbat, of course it's mutar on Yom Kippur according to Rabbi Yochanan. So why did he say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? So a bunch of people learn from here, you can lie under certain circumstances because he lied to them. He said, Rabbi Yochanan said this, and he was lying basically to get his family to listen. So in order to get them to keep halacha, he basically lied. And he went extreme. He said, you can't do this at all. Forget about mina mincha. You can't do this at all, he said. Okay? What else is interesting? What's fascinating to me is that it wasn't enough. Rabbi was a big Talmid Chacham. It wasn't enough for him to say, I think it's wrong. His family wasn't going to listen to him. Only if he said, and who did he choose specifically? He said, I got a letter from Eretz Israel because he figured they can't check their sources, right? Maybe they didn't know what Rabbi Yochanan held. It was easy to say someone from far away says it. And if they had said some other local rabbi, they would know, oh, he doesn't say that. But he took someone from far away who maybe they'd have no idea of knowing what his real opinion is. And he said this. So it's just a very interesting way to end the parak of, how you can sometimes twist things around to get people to keep halacha. That's what he felt anyway. I don't know if everyone would agree. Okay, but that will end the parak and the shiur. Have a great day, everybody.